keep doing this work, man, and sharing with others. This is what it's about. Y'all are impressive folks going far yourself, so I was pleased to be here.
Welcome in, everyone, to NBA Unplugged, the greatest financial literacy podcast show on the planet. I'm Charles Winfrey, your host. Today I'm joined by my co-host, Liam Wong. Today we have a very special guest. Been very excited about this one. I'm excited for you guys to get this because there's a lot of information that many students might not have heard before. Before we jump in, we know the goal of this podcast, reaching out to students, but really to provide that connect between business moguls, such as our guest today, and students, so they can find that inner joint lock between maybe what they can find and what they want to do with their career. So with that, I'll let my co-host introduce himself.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for the introduction, Charles. I'd love to make the introductions for Randy Hazelton. Randy Hazelton is a founding partner of H&H Hospitality, established in 2008 with his first restaurant in Atlanta's Old Fourth Ward. The restaurant's popularity led him to explore opportunities through the ABCDE program. Under his leadership, the company has developed a diverse portfolio of local, regional, and nationally recognized brands, including multiple restaurants at the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, where they operate Shake Shack and other popular venues. Served on the board of directors for Atlanta's Development Authority, Invest Atlanta, and the Airport Minority Advisory Council, or AMAC. His commitment to civic and economic empowerment is evident in his active participation with various local and national organizations dedicated to these causes. Thank you so much for joining us today, Randy Hazelton. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I've been excited to talk to y'all. Really happy to be here. Appreciate the invite.
I appreciate that. So sure. Randy, to start off, I read online, I read about you, Forbes feature, projected to do 100 mil 2025, all these numbers. But who is Randy Hazelton for people who don't know you?
Yeah, man, and let me correct the record. That was actually 100 million in 5 years from the point that statement was made. But either way, we not dreaming any small dreams.
Still
so I appreciate that. So who am I, man? I'm a child, fortunately, of two loving parents. Grew up in a military household. Have two brothers. One that I grew up with that also is a Morehouse alum, Cornell Hazelton, another brother in Boston. Moved around a lot, had a very nomadic life. I never lived anywhere more than 2 years until I went to Hampton University, my alma mater. And was just always kind of a curious kid, one trying to figure out how things work, the world around me, relational dynamics. Found myself at Hampton. Shout out to Hampton.
The real HU.
The real HU in the middle of this Morehouse podcast. And while at Hampton, gravitated toward business because that was always something I was interested in. I was a kid when I was young that would go like buy blow pops and sell them in the school and buy candy. I was always selling, flipping something. So anyway, that took me into business. Studied that at Hampton, did their 5-year MBA program, came out and worked in corporate America. Figured out I didn't like it, and then started my journey in entrepreneurship. So
absolutely, I want to dive a little bit deeper into your childhood. So you talked about curiosity. I know you're into entrepreneurship. What do you think were some vital, key childhood memories or lessons that you took away that were so important for building the drive, the ambition, the curiosity you have today?
Yeah, I think one of those inflection moments for me is my family's from the South, Charleston, South Carolina, and then a small town outside of Tampa called Dade City, Florida. Dirt roads, country folk. We would do a family reunion in the summers. And this summer we did it in Fort Myers, Florida, which is kind of a coastal town that has canals, backs up against the ocean, that kind of thing. And at this family reunion, we would do these did like a riverboat tour where you go down these canals. And these canals, they open up into the ocean, they dump out into the ocean. And the closer we got to the ocean, like the bigger the homes got. And I remember like looking at homes that I had never seen, like big estates, and it's all white people drinking champagne and partying and having a good time. And I remember wondering like why I had never seen or experienced anything like that. Like my family doesn't come from that. I just never been exposed to that. But also I remember like making eye contact with one of the older white guys in his yard that seems to be having a barbecue drinking champagne. And he like pulled his pants down and showed his ass to all of it, like mooned the boat, like almost.
White man?
Yeah, just kind of being funny, but like ha 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 ha. And I think in my mind I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be your neighbor one day. Like we're not about to do that. But it was one of those things that like, why does their life look like that and ours look like this? Not that I grew up military, so we were fine. But it was such a stark difference. that really started to drive me to figure out like how to get to that side of it, because it looked like they were having a great time.
Yeah, and that's so interesting because you talk about an experience that kind of shaped how you want to see yourself in the future.
Yeah.
I know you said you went into the corporate world, you found out that didn't really work out for you.
Yep.
You go to Morehouse, you go to Spelman. A lot of our listeners, Morehouse and Spelman.
Mm-hmm.
Corporate world is almost as seen as the vital next step, like after college.
Yeah.
And so you were a prime example of it didn't work out for someone. So I want to ask you, what do you have to say to someone who maybe thinks corporate is the only thing they have to do, but they feel like they're doing it more at a security landscape versus something that this is something they would actually want to do? So I just want to say, what would you say to that student who thinks, I don't know if I want to go corporate, maybe do entrepreneur? What would you say to that student?
Yeah, I think what I would say to that student is really important to know yourself. Like, you really have to come to understand yourself. Self-awareness is a real thing. And we all have these natural gravities. Like, we all have these things. Even you think about it for yourself. Things as a kid, you always liked doing whatever. You always were curious about that. Those things should inform what you move into, whether that is corporate America or not. But doing corporate America because you are told to, if that doesn't sit with like the truth of you, you'll find yourself unhappy in it over time.
Yeah.
So what I would say is like really come to understand yourself and ask yourself like honest questions and pay attention to, you know, what makes you feel good and what makes you feel uncomfortable, or what, you know, pay attention to those things and then make decisions based on that truth, because it'll make you feel more energized about your life and the decisions you make in it. And it'll keep you out of stuff that you probably got no business doing. So I don't think it's a right or wrong thing, because let me tell you, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Like, I've seen a lot of people also try that and kill themselves. I mean, not literally kill themselves, but like crash out, because it's hard, and it takes a whole different set of characteristics versus corporate America. So I think it's just about knowing yourself.
I want to follow that.
Yeah.
Why did you leave corporate? Not, you don't have to name any experiences, any companies.
Yeah.
What was that click in your mind that said, this is not for me?
I never liked it. Like, I never felt good there. It always felt uncomfortable. It always felt, for me, fake, disingenuous. Like, the people, they were good people, but it wasn't my tribe. I was selling a product I wasn't connected to, working for a company that I didn't have a passion about, doing things that I just wouldn't choose for myself. It felt like an artificial life for me. And that's just a shit way to live. Like, I want to feel good about the things I'm doing and feel authentic about it. And I woke up one day, I was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done waking up feeling like this, like, you know, dragging myself into it all. I'm just not doing that.
It was like, wake up one day, I'm
and literally, I went and I talked to my boss, and we were cool. We had a great relationship. And I was like, listen, I'm going to be leaving. This is me putting in my 30-day notice. I didn't want to feel like that anymore.
Yeah.
And you talked about your entrepreneurship and how it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
Could you please set the realistic expectations of how it's going to be on your entrepreneurship journey? Take us through some of your hardest challenges that you faced during that journey.
Yeah, I mean, how's it gonna be? I mean, hard is such an easy like characterization of it. It's gonna require all of you. Like, you have to be committed to it. You're gonna be focusing on your business when some of your other people might be out partying, doing whatever. If you're serious about it and really want it to work, it's gonna push you probably to the limits that you thought you had for yourself. But if you got the kind of perseverance that successful entrepreneurs have, like, you'll learn how much bigger than those limits you are. But it's gonna push you. It's gonna test your mettle. You will probably have like long periods of times when you are broke. Like, I'm talking about you ain't got it unless you happen to be fortunate enough to have resources that will just keep pouring in. I didn't have that. So you're gonna go through like financial hard times likely, but you'll learn a lot about yourself and business and other people, and it's quite an education. I mean, but yeah, it's not going to be easy by any stretch.
Yeah. So we talked about the entrepreneur journey. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, CEO of H&H Hospitality. So, for people who don't know H&H Hospitality, from my understanding, it's a portfolio of a lot of restaurant franchises within not just airports, within various industries. But I would like for you to add on to that. So, can you break down for viewers what is H&H Hospitality and kind of what makes up of all of the portfolio?
Yeah. So what H&H Hospitality is now is we are fully an airport restaurant operations company. So we own and operate restaurants in airports, that being Atlanta, Dallas, Fort Worth, DFW, Dulles and Washington, D.C., and then we have some stuff in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Okay.
All restaurants, different franchise brands, everything from, Shake Shack to Fresh and Yogurt to Pizza Place, Coffee Shop, Auntie Anne's Pretzels, like a mix of different type of categories. But we own and operate franchise brands in airports for now. We're about to do some stuff street side, meaning just everyday locations that the average pedestrian can get to, just outside in your hometown, downtown, that kind of thing. So we're going to get back into that, but for now it's all airports and all restaurants.
So it's funny, not to get into the portfolio or anything, but I've heard 20 restaurants. I've heard, just to give viewers context, I've heard 34 in your most recent interview. What can we get a possible updated number?
Now the update is 41.
Wow.
It's crazy. I
That's
don't know,
crazy.
keep changing. But it's 41 restaurants, 20 brands, 41 restaurants today. Yeah,
Okay.
we're trying to grow.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And
Yeah,
so,
sure.
can you kind of talk us through how so you're founder of H&H Hospitality, is that
Mhm.
correct? So how did you come through with the idea? Where did you even start? Like your network, your connections, where did this all even come from? Because you don't just start connecting with large brands and managing restaurants within these industries.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, now good question. I mean, well, let me say this too. So it's two founders, me and Kevin Holt. We were both in corporate America. I was working in CPG, he was working on Wall Street. We both at the same time were kind of over corporate America and had saved enough money to open up a restaurant. And we decided to get into restaurants because we were always hanging out in restaurants and clubs and lounges and that kind of thing, and just thought we could do it. So that part, I mean, frankly, we just, hey, put your money together, let's go sell drinks to people, and, let's go do the whole thing. So we just jumped out. It was really whimsical, and, we 20-something and just thinking we could do all things. And we jumped out there and then figured out how hard, like, everything was, and really struggled for years. But, and we operated the first restaurant for 5 years. I would say the first 2 years was just all learning and trying to figure out how to do this thing. Then we started getting good at it. And then once we got good at it, people started taking notice. And so we would coincidentally bump into other food and beverage operators that were looking for partners to do business with in the airport and help them kind of own and operate restaurants in airports. And there's a program called the ACDB program, you mentioned that in the intro, that makes for opportunities for folks like us, meaning minority-owned businesses that do less than $50 million in revenue.
Yeah.
So there are specific programs that when a bigger company is coming into the Atlanta airport, for example, and wants to take down a bunch of restaurants, wants to open a bunch of restaurants, they have to partner with ACDBEs. So those conversations come our way because they were looking for partners that were ACDBEs.
Yeah.
And that's really how we got into the airport environment, is those partners looking for folks that really did the thing and were good at it and would help benefit, what they were trying to do.
Okay, so starting from the beginning, first restaurant, Capital Circuit, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm a numbers guy. I know you started on the street side, so you started with a normal restaurant on the street, correct?
Yep.
Before the airport? Okay, so for people out there, realistically, not nitty gritty, how much did it cost and does it cost, let's say, open up a restaurant franchise?
So Cafe Circuit cost us $500,000. Now that
What year is this?
This is 2008, so you account for
Jeez.
inflation. It's going to be a different number.
Yeah.
But it also cost us that because it was just, the building we went into had no infrastructure. So meaning no plumbing, no electric, no usable plumbing, electric, or HVAC or any of that. So we had to put all that stuff in.
Okay.
If we found a place that already had that, we would have cut that bill in half. We'd have been down $250 off the top. So when you ask how much does it cost, it depends on what you're opening and what infrastructure or foundational stuff they have that you can use without having to do it yourself.
Right.
So it can vary. I would say generally on the low end, even for a second generation restaurant, you're probably at $300,000 or so likely.
What's second generation, just for clarity?
So second generation is a restaurant space that was prior to you a restaurant space.
Okay.
So when we went into Cafe Circuit, it used to be a grocery store. And it
Oh,
was
I see.
vacant for 50 years, so it was really nothing by the time we got in there. But you'll have, when a McDonald's goes out of business, like Wendy's can go in there and open it up as a Wendy's, but
Right.
they already got all the similar infrastructure because you're both selling burgers and fries. We call that second generation.
Okay. And you said that is, I'm assuming, substantially cheaper, cutting your bill in half.
Absolutely, 100%. Like I'm working on a concept now, and I'm putting it in a building that I bought that's a second generation restaurant, because I'm not doing that from scratch anymore. Like, we
So
ain't doing it.
just go ahead and throw it out there. No need to waste. If you're trying to franchise, don't go into first generation.
If you can
building.
help it, go second generation. You'll save a lot of money and a lot of time.
But I'm thinking, you're thinking like that. Everybody else is going to be thinking like that. So realistically, how many opportunities are out there to find these second generation buildings with opportunity to franchise a restaurant?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they're everywhere, but it's also not like they're super rare, because the reality is restaurants fail a lot. It's a very high failure rate industry, which means there's a lot of restaurants that are there today, gone tomorrow. And when they're gone, that's an opportunity for the next restaurateur to come in.
Yeah.
So they're out there enough for me to suggest that you strongly consider and try to find one of those.
Okay.
What was the learning curve like into doing everything? Did you have to get your hands dirty at times and just do things yourself, and you couldn't hire outsourcing? What was it like?
Yeah, no, the learning curve was crazy. I mean, the learning curve was insane. I don't know. It's like going to another country where you don't know anybody, don't speak the language, and you got to figure it out. That's what it felt, because we just jumped out not knowing. So what happens is you're making decisions without much basis for it. So you're kind of guessing, your best guessing. And when you do that, as opposed to either getting real world experience or like studying hard, you tend to get a lot of answers wrong. So, which means you're making a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
And mistakes in business cost money. Like every single one of them costs money. So that's what happens. We ended up making a lot of mistakes and costing a lot of money, which ultimately took us into bankruptcy and everything else.
Interesting. Okay, so I know you said in the airport now,
Yep.
that obviously can be easy to do. I imagine it's a very highly competitive, relationship-based game.
Yep.
So from what you said so far, it almost sounds like you started from ground zero, and you worked your way all the way up to the airport now. My question is, how did you do that? Like, was this a relationship game you played? Was this people saw the energy and value you were bringing to them? What would you say to someone who's starting at ground zero and trying to elevate their game to get to, let's say, the place you are now?
So if we're talking to get into the airport, that ACDB program is really critical.
Okay.
But what made people want to consider us as their ACDBEs is they saw us in there working, busting our ass every day and getting good results in time once we learned the business. So one, I gotta say it was like our work ethic and work quality. And then our reputation for being, decent guys and aren't trying to cheat anybody and, treat people right, like that kind of thing, like the kind of people that honest people are comfortable doing business with. I would say those things got us in the door in terms of that airport environment. Getting from let's say, one store, two stores to 40, I think in part of it is just like the height of your own ambitions. I mean, I don't work any more now than I did with one store. My goal setting is different. Like I am intent on getting to that $100 million number.
Yeah.
Which means I got to be making certain decisions that will get me there.
Right.
So it's kind of setting targets toward where you're trying to go, and then making decisions, and which means strategic planning, hiring the right team to help you get there, all that kind of stuff that will enable you to realize those goals.
I was just about to say, you said you don't work any more now than you did with one store with now 41. How is that possible? What, delegation?
I mean,
what is it?
team. Really is. I mean, I used to sleep in that restaurant, man. I might have worked more
So you worked in
then.
restaurants?
Not now, but
Okay.
when I first started, I was in that thing all the time. Like, I might have put in more hours then than
Sheesh.
now. But now, I have a team that takes on a lot of the things. Because one person cannot operate 40 anything.
Sure.
But I have a team that handles operations, a team that handles HR, a team that, and it allows me to focus on getting to that $100 million number. That's the real hack.
That's right.
Yes, the team.
You founded H&H Hospitality in 2008.
Yeah.
You've gone through bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Why didn't you quit?
Man, because quitting is for suckers, man. What you mean when I quit? What does that even mean? How you spell it? No, it was just never, that's not how my mind works. Like, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
Like, you can't, there's a lot of possibilities for me in the world. Quitting is just not one. And that's just how, it wasn't an option for me. I'm not programmed like that,
What do you recommend to other people who are going through tough times in their businesses? And in entrepreneurship, eventually there is a point where you may need to pivot.
Yeah.
When is that pivot moment? Like, when you recognize that?
Yeah, now that's a good question. And don't get me wrong, I have failed and have to fold the tent on certain things. But I'm talking about pursuing, success on my terms, like that's what's gonna happen. I might, I should have gone left when I went right. Maybe I got to do a U-turn and go back and I'll do that kind of thing. But I think it's important to know that, like when you're going through hard times, everybody else, particularly that started from ground zero, is going through it, has gone through it. I promise, there is no easy road to like the mountaintop. It's not gonna happen. So like, as much as people want to get on, the Instagram, whatever, and be like, I'm fly, I did this, and I got it. They either are lying, or they're telling the cool part of the story. Like the rest of it is that it is hard. So like, no, you're not alone. The other thing is like, it's not gonna break you. I promise, it will not take your life. Like it won't. Like on its own, like the sun's gonna rise tomorrow, and you're gonna get out of bed, and then what you choose the rest of the day is up to you. But it's gonna be there for you to make those kind of choices. So like you will be okay. And then the last thing is that you have all the stuff to do it. Like it's nothing. I'm not like a magician or some shit. Like I'm just intent on doing the work. I will outwork most people I come across. And I spend a lot of time figuring out the highest quality decision I can make. Yeah. But like everybody can do that. So I would say like those three things. Everybody goes through the challenge. Like it's not gonna kill you unless you let it. And everything you need to get it done is in you if you apply it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So when I first met you at the franchise game, shout out Miss Tarja Carter for putting on an amazing event. Shout out putting on an amazing event. But when I first met you, I could tell it was kind of something different. I kind of felt your energy, your demeanor. And then I read up on you, no glaze or anything. I read up on you, I see all these amazing things. But my question to you is, what makes you different from your peers? What are the daily actions that you take or the standard that you hold yourself to that sets you apart from everyone else?
Yeah, man, that's a good question, man. I don't think I'm like entirely different from everybody, because I really do see, what I'm made of, like we're made of. But yeah. I do think I have more discipline than most people. I will get up at 5, I'll get in the gym, I will meditate, I'll go to the sauna, I'll get in the plunge pool. I like do all these things that get me primed to perform a certain way. And I'll commit to the work. Like I'm not like a lazy cut corner type person. I got really high standards, and I insist on myself and my team to like hit it. So a lot of those things to me is centered around like discipline and like standard setting. Yeah. You know what I mean? That if there is a difference, it's around that, but it's not because I'm made of something different.
So big on setting goals. You know, like vision boards,
you gotta set goals. If you don't know where you like, if you don't know where you're going, you won't get anywhere.
Man, without the vision will perish.
Yeah, you won't. Like get in the car and just like, where you going? Right. What you doing? Otherwise, you're just taking a drive. Yeah. I'm not like I am. That's right. You got mountains to climb around here, man.
Yeah. Absolutely. How do you define discipline? What is your definition of it?
That's a good question. Discipline, I would say, is a commitment to the task and behaviors, a consistent commitment to tasks and behaviors that result in a given outcome of your choosing. And so, now what's important in that is knowing what those things are, those tasks and behaviors that get to the thing. But I would say it's a commitment to like a regiment that enables a certain outcome. And I mean a commitment to it, like consistency in it. That's what discipline is to me.
What have been some habits of yours that made you committed and disciplined to this art? I know you talked about plunging, cold plunging, sauna, meditating. Yeah. I know you're a very holistic person who wants every single aspect to be healthy. Yeah. Where did you start this? Why did you start it? Was it some type of like internal shift where you didn't like the way your life was? I know you talked about corporate, but what made you change?
No, that's a good question too, man. Boy, these Morehouse boys, man, y'all come with these questions. Sheesh. All right, so what started it? I don't know that it was any one thing. I think it was a couple things. So I answer in a couple ways. One is I always wanted to climb the mountain, right? And I realized there are certain things that wouldn't make for that. Like if you're trying to be a track star, but you are eating Twinkies every day and sitting on the couch, like you're not gonna run very fast. certainly not as fast as you could if you were, eating healthy and practicing and training, right? So I started to learn, I have to do less of this to be able to do more of this. Some of that could be less staying up and staying out late, or partying and that, so I can be up and be fresh and bright-eyed and go be sharp when I need to be sharp. Some of the other things were just by happenstance, like diet, for example. I was dating a young lady, and we had a bet, and the wager was, if I lost, I had to fast on all raw juices and smoothies for a week, and I lost the bet. And I'm I ate my pork chop. I'm saying, I'm having it how I want it. And I'm so I lost, and I did it, and I fasted, ate nothing but juices and smoothies, all raw for a week, and I hated it the first few days. By the end of the week, I felt the best I had, and this is probably when I was late 20s, let's say. I felt the best I had felt since I was 10 years old, right? But what that said to me, and I'm not an extremist, I'm not about to be, I'm still gonna have what I want. But what that said was man, what you put in your body really impacts everything. Your mind, your body, your spirit, your energy, everything. So then I got more conscious about eating. I started cutting out red meat, started cutting out from that experience. So some of it happened in I don't believe in coincidence, but in an instant. Others was just man, I do much better in a meeting, in an 8 o'clock meeting when I went to bed at 10 and not waking up hungover from partying. You know what I'm saying? I'm just better. I'm sharper. So let me do less of that so I can do more of this, because this is what's going to get me to the mountain I'm trying to climb.
Yeah.
It's that kind of stuff.
What keeps you going? All the success, all the things going for you. What is it?
Man, y'all are it's super soul.
No, we're trying to hear it because this is real.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. I love this.
What
What keeps me going? I have a lot of expectation of myself, and part of what keeps me going is how much duller life feels when I'm not living closer to my potential. So it makes me, you know what I mean? I feel better in the world and about myself and about life when I'm when I'm doing my best, and it just feels man, it feels better than just kind of meandering around and clocking in, clocking out. So I think that is I think that's a human thing when we get in touch with it. The rest is that I'm big on giving, even spending time just sharing. I think more than making money, when we give in an authentic way, that the feeling of that is incredible.
It's great.
And the more you do, and the more you accumulate, money is a force multiplier in a way. So the more you can give and share and that kind of thing, it also gives you freedom, which I like. I don't like anybody telling me I gotta do anything. I'm about to do what I want to do, and I'm gonna set my life up so that that's the case. That also feels better for me. I don't feel confined like corporate America. And then without getting too whatever, but I think some of it is just being in touch with what God expects of me, frankly. I think I'm supposed to keep going and keep growing and stretching and climbing and giving and sharing and all the things.
Absolutely. I know you talked about work experience. I think I experienced something similar where it's not even necessarily about the type of work that you do, but it's about at the end of the day you did your best. You have that internal feeling of satisfaction, right?
Yeah.
So, and instead you don't want to be going through life just doing mediocre, because you have that uneasiness inside of you, right? So what would you say to your audience who want to do their best, unsure what to go in? I know you talked about nature of gravity, so how would you define that column?
Yeah, want to do their best but don't know what they want to do clearly. I used to have that issue with myself where I had some friends that they just knew it very precisely what they want to do. I want to go play basketball. Period, and be a professional ball player, and they went and did that thing. Or I want to be an engineer, and they went and did, and I never knew it outside of business, right? But I couldn't say I want to go invent the next, EV company Elon. I had no idea. So the best I knew is that I like business, and I got into restaurants as a function of wanting to get into a business and understanding restaurants enough to do it. And that was just my vehicle in the business. So what I would say to that person is, I would just zoom out and try to capture the the most clarity you have around anything that you gravitate to. And just start there. Just place yourself in that space somewhere. And the more you get in it, like the more you get a little bit keener sense as, you know what, I like to be a little bit more to the left or to the right of that. But like start where you are. I mean, you there are things that you like. Like everybody has that. There are things you're interested in, things you read about, things you listen about. Like start with what you know, and then just hone in over time until it becomes more clear is what I would say. Because I had the same thing.
That's awesome. I really do appreciate all the gems because not a lot of people feel open, vulnerable, opening up about some of these things, some of the struggles, and then some of the successes to let. So, I mean, at the end of the day, the reason we have mentors and people on the show like this is to expedite our viewers' their career path and really avoid some of the mistakes maybe some of our predecessors had before. So I really appreciate that. But as we begin to close, I want to ask you, back to you about the business. What's next for H&H? Let's say, I know you're big on goals. Maybe, let's say, where do you see H&H Hospitality in 5 years? Or where do you see Randy Hazelton in 5 years?
Yeah. So H&H is going to keep doing what H&H does, but at a bigger level. Meaning we're going to keep growing over more restaurants, but I think we're going to get more into M&A as a vehicle for growth, like buying companies and that kind of thing. Because we want to go big. Like again, mountaintops, no small dreams, push yourself, the whole thing. So we're gonna go big on that. Randy has launched another venture in the food and beverage outside of H&H where I want to get on the franchisor side of food and beverage. I'm a franchisee now. I operate other people's brands. I've been working on a brand for 5 years that I am opening the first store of which in 2 weeks. And then the second store in about 4 months and the third store in about 6 months. Man, I could, but we ain't got NDA signed. I have to pull the choppers out and take all your
we'll just wait 2 weeks.
I don't want to do that. But it's coming. And I think that is going to be probably my next decade's worth of work. And I think it's going to be a very big thing for me.
That's awesome.
Making that a national brand.
That's awesome.
So you heard it here first.
You heard it here on NBL Unplugged. 2 weeks. New store opening up, Randy Hazelton. I mean, other than that, that's really all I had. Liam, any closing remarks?
I thought what you said, your answers were absolutely incredible. I personally have found more direction within, I guess, in terms of discipline and knowing what to do next.
Okay.
I understand that it takes a lot of hard work, and that hard work for some people is different from hard work for others, and it's all about finding your limits and trying to surpass it as best as possible. So thank you so much for your time. And we really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I mean,
of course.
I would echo the same thing. I appreciate your time.
Of course.
To all the viewers, I hope you took something out of this video. I ask that you do like and share this video. And subscribe. Hit that big red button down below. Get more guests on like Mr. Randy Hazelton. But other than that, Randy, I appreciate your time.
I appreciate y'all. Y'all keep doing this work, man, and sharing with others. This is what it's about. Y'all are impressive folks going far yourself. So I was pleased to be here.
Thank you.
And I'm here as a resource whenever.
Appreciate that. Other than that, shout out to our camera videographers behind the scene. Mr. Mason Compton, Mr. Reed, Hurd. And other than that, I'll see you on the next one. Peace.